Hi everyone! Today we're diving into an incredible project from my little garage, where Alexander takes on the challenge of building a full two-story garage entirely on his own. Every durable structure starts from the ground up. Multi-floor buildings place much heavier loads on the ground, so the foundation must resist settling, shifting, and long-term fatigue. With this in mind, he decided on a reinforced concrete slab, a choice that would serve both as the garage floor and a single, continuous platform capable of supporting the entire build. He began by assembling sturdy formwork, carefully outlining the shape and edges of the slab. Inside this form, he arranged a grid of steel reinforcement bars. Concrete is excellent at handling compression, but not tension, which makes it prone to cracking when exposed to bending forces. The rebar grid counteracts those weaknesses, giving the slab strength in all directions and ensuring the structure remains stable for decades. He worked methodically, leveling and smoothing the surface until it was perfectly flat. The curing period that followed was just as important. He protected the slab from drying too quickly, allowing the concrete to gain full strength. With the foundation done, Alexander moved on to the walls. He selected aerated concrete blocks, known for being light, strong, and thermally efficient. Their uniform dimensions made it easy to build straight, clean walls. He marked his wall layout on the slab, mixed mortar, and carefully set the first row, the most important one, for ensuring level alignment. After establishing the base course, he switched to a thin-bed adhesive for the remaining rows. AAC blocks are designed to work with this technique, relying on a 2-3 mm layer of adhesive rather than thick mortar joints. This speeds up the work, reduces waste, and results in more precise construction. Throughout the process, Alexander constantly checked the walls using levels, string lines, and corner guides, maintaining accuracy with every course. As the walls rose, he incorporated structural reinforcements where needed, horizontal steel in select joints, reinforcement over openings, and additional support at critical points. Once the walls reached full height for each story, he poured in armopoyas, a continuous reinforced concrete ring beam. This band ties the structure together, distributes loads evenly, and provides a secure mounting point for the wooden elements that will form the roof and upper framing. To mount the floor system, Alexander used a ledger and hanger approach. He bolted a heavy wooden ledger board along the inside face of the concrete bond beam on both long walls. These boards were fixed in place using expansion anchors driven into the concrete or the anchor bolts embedded during the armopoya stage. With the first floor walls complete and firmly reinforced, Alexander moved on to constructing the structure that would support the second level. For this, he selected sturdy wooden beams, a classic, reliable solution for spanning wide interiors. Wood offered two major advantages. It was strong enough for the job, and it was far easier for a single builder to lift, cut, and install compared to creating a second-story concrete slab. This choice also gave him more freedom in planning the layout of the upper floor. He began by marking the exact placement of each joist along the tops of the masonry walls. Because of the garage's width, the beams needed to be thick enough to support long spans without sagging. These joists would stretch across the shorter dimension of the garage and rest securely on the long walls. With the ledgers installed, he could set the joists into metal hangers, locking them firmly to the structure. By the end of this phase, he had created a strong, stable separation between the first and second floors. Through each phase, Alexander combined thoughtful planning with hands-on skill, blending masonry and carpentry into a strong, functional two-story structure. Once the joists were in place, he added OSB sheathing on top. This formed a rigid subfloor that could later support interior finishes while also stiffening the entire frame. With the upper floor secured, Alexander turned his focus to the roof. He chose a straightforward gable design, two sloping sides meeting at a ridge. This was practical, shed rain and snow efficiently, and was manageable for a solo builder. With the framing complete, Alexander moved to weather protection. He rolled out a breathable, waterproof membrane across the rafters. This underlayment is essential. It stops any moisture that might slip beneath the final roofing material. Once the membrane was secured, he planned the drainage system, preparing the eaves for gutters that would direct rainwater safely away from the building. For the roofing drainage system, Alexander mounted the gutters using sturdy brackets and pre-drilled hooks fixed firmly into the roof structure. He secured them with long galvanized nails, providing resistance against wind, heavy rain, and the weight of collected water. Downspouts were placed at planned points along the gutter line, ensuring that runoff was directed away from the building. At ground level, these pipes connected into an external drain system that safely carried water toward a designated discharge area. Next, Alexander focused on the insulated curbs surrounding the foundation. He began by creating a compacted sand layer with a subtle slope of about 2 centimeters per meter, a critical detail that encourages water to drain outward rather than pooling near the building. Over this prepared base, he laid EPS insulation panels to improve thermal protection. On top of the insulation, he added a waterproofing membrane, forming a reliable defense against moisture while preserving insulation performance. To shape the edge of the curb, he constructed perimeter formwork and welded a steel angle frame from 40 by 40 mm profiles to support the future vehicle ramp. Inside the formwork, he placed a 5 mm reinforcement mesh to reduce the risk of cracking. Once poured and leveled, the concrete created a strong, insulated perimeter curb that protected the foundation and reduced the risk of frost heave in colder months. After completing the subfloor structure, Alexander covered the OSB panels with a waterproof membrane. This protective wrap blocked rain and humidity from reaching the wood sheathing and added a small but valuable boost to the garage's insulation. With the barrier in place, the walls were ready for exterior cladding. For the siding, he chose rugged, low-maintenance panels. He began with starter strips at the base of the wall to create a precise, straight line, then installed the siding in overlapping rows. Each panel was aligned carefully and secured with nails fitted with rubber washers, ensuring a weather-tight seal. From there, he shifted attention to the eaves and the underside of the roof overhang. Vinyl soffit panels were selected because of their resistance to rot and minimal upkeep. Trim pieces and fascia boards were added around the edges and corners to conceal joints and give the roofline a finished appearance. At the same time, he began installing interior insulation. Although the exterior envelope provided substantial protection, the internal walls and ceiling needed additional thermal treatment to prevent heat loss and soften noise. The insulation materials he selected offered a balance between easy installation and effective performance. In the garage area, where temperatures shift more dramatically, he used denser insulation to maintain comfort year-round. Before any wall finishing could begin, a vapor barrier was added on the warm side of the insulation. This step is crucial, as it keeps moisture from entering the insulated cavities, a common source of damage and mold in unprotected structures. Through each careful stage, Alexander methodically transformed the first floor into a functional, comfortable, and energy-efficient space. After completing the insulation and vapor barrier, Alexander moved on to finishing the interior surfaces. Drywall was installed across the walls and ceilings, creating a clean, uniform base for paint and trim. In the garage section, he chose to keep parts of the ceiling exposed to highlight the solid structural work, while the workshop and upper-level rooms received a smooth, fully painted finish for a more refined look. The electrical system, complete with its own sub-panel, GFCI protection, and neatly planned wiring routes, ensured that the entire space would be safe, efficient, and ready for any future tools or upgrades. Next came the installation of the first-story windows. With the sash temporarily removed, Alexander placed the frame into the prepared opening to check for proper fit. After confirming it sat square against the wall, he marked the attachment points for the anchor plates. He drilled through the reinforced metal inside the frame and fixed the plates in place. To make sure the window was perfectly level, he used small plastic wedges along the bottom. Corresponding holes were then drilled into the wall, and the anchor plates were secured with dowels augmented with adhesive to ensure a strong bond in the soft gas concrete blocks. Once the frame was solidly fixed, he rehung the sash by shifting the hinge washer slightly and tapping the hinge pin back into place. Gaps around the frame were sealed with expanding foam, applied first from the outside and then from the inside. He also peeled off the protective transport film so it wouldn't interfere with the foam's adhesion. The end result was an airtight, insulated window that improved both the appearance and energy efficiency of the structure. With the exterior elements in place, Alexander turned his attention to the interior of the first floor. Electrical wiring came first. He mapped out the circuits carefully, planning routes for outlets, lighting, and future additions so the system would remain adaptable. With the building envelope complete, Alexander moved on to fitting out the ground floor. Installing a sectional door was the next major task. He chose panels made from steel sandwich construction, offering strength, insulation, and reliability at an affordable price. This design also made the assembly manageable for one person, making it a practical choice for his two-car garage. With the door frame ready, Alexander began assembling the sectional door panels, the main functional and visual components of the entrance. He started with the bottom panel, which included a built-in rubber seal and clear alignment markings. On this lower section, he attached a corner bracket fitted with a roller. Together with an adjustable side support and a central hinge, this setup ensured that the door would pivot and glide smoothly along its track system. One of the key mechanisms in this type of retractable door is the cable and spring assembly. After all the door panels were stacked and connected, Alexander moved on to installing the tension cables. Each cable had a looped end that he secured to the lower corner bracket. From there, he carefully threaded the cable upward into a dedicated top bracket that housed a dual pulley system, which helps balance the door's movement and weight. With the building itself complete, Alexander turned to the final feature that would define the garage's purpose: a two-post car lift. After clearing the work area, he marked exact positions on the reinforced concrete slab for the lift's columns. With assistance, he raised the heavy steel posts into place. Using a hammer drill, he created anchor holes according to the manufacturer's guidelines. Given the gas concrete structure of his garage, he relied on strong expansion anchors to ensure the columns would remain firmly secured. Once the base plates were aligned, the anchor bolts were tapped in and tightened. Alexander then connected the columns with a top crossbeam, forming the backbone of the lift. Steel cables were routed over the pulleys and connected to the carriages on both posts, creating the synchronized lifting mechanism. Finally, he attached the adjustable lift arms that would support vehicles during maintenance. When everything was assembled, Alexander stepped back and admired the fully equipped garage complete with the lift he had long envisioned. It marked a rewarding end to 6 months of dedication and hard work.